All right, guys, I'm not really going to be in the picture all this much, but I'm going to try to explain it the best way I can to give you guys just a better grasp of exactly how it works. So basically, we run one piece of software, and that piece of software ends up sending it to the head unit right here, okay, over on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, you guys are familiar with that, right? You guys have seen that. If you've owned a CO2, if you've seen a CO2, you understand that concept. You work through the software, whether you're using RDWorks or whether you're using some proprietary software like I am, and what it ends up doing is it ends up sending it over to the machine downloads that file, processes that file, runs that file. However, on this particular machine, we have two different modes. We got mode 1 and mode 2, okay? So mode 1 is geared to like engraving, cutting, things like that. Anything that's basically not metal, we can cut or engrave. So basically, if we're doing wood, acrylic, leather, ceramic, we can do that all in mode 1. Okay, it gives us different things like if you want to cut on the Y, you want to cut on the X, you want to, however you'd like to do it. There's a lot of cool things, and I'm still learning the software, so not everything that I'm telling you, is probably up to par. There's probably some new stuff that I don't know, some things like that. So basically, what ends up happening is we cut and we engrave on mode 1. Now, this machine does have the ability to engrave on stainless and on steel in mode 1 without oxygen. Okay, so you can still engrave on them. You can also engrave on titanium as well. However, be very careful what you do with titanium because it is very flammable. I'll explain that here in a little bit. So mode 1 is kind of geared towards your regular CO2. So if you're wanting to do something like this, you'd be running in mode 1. You're going to cut something, you're going to engrave something, you're going to choose some depths, you're going to choose a number of passes, things along that line. And mode 2 is totally different. So what ends up happening is you send it over there, you come over here, you switch this head unit over to mode 2. Once you switch this over to mode 2, now you have the ability to add oxygen to the setup as well. So the reason why it's geared a little bit different is because mode 2 is designed more for cutting, and it does do engraving, but it's designed more for cutting and less for engraving because it's much hotter. So what we end up using is a oxygen bottle, okay? So we cannot run an air compressor. So with like a plasma cutter, you're running somewhere between like 35 and maybe 65 or 70 pounds of actual air compressor air, okay? But with this machine here, we're actually running it with, I'm gonna move you guys over a little bit. You actually can see right here, we're running it with an actual 120 tank. Okay, so we've got a couple tanks here. You guys are only seeing one right now. It's one of the deals where we can regulate it right from there. We don't have to worry about anything like water, condensation, anything like that getting in the line. Obviously it's flammable, right? Because it's pure oxygen. So you get that from like a welding supply shop, something along those lines. You get a small tank maybe or something like that if you get something from say like Home Depot or Lowe's, but you need to get like a legit bottle if you're going to be cutting stuff. Because you can't swap bottles during the middle of a cut. So it's one of those deals where you need to get up to the 2,000 to 3,000 PSI bottle range to really accommodate the machine. So now that you understand mode 1, wood, leather, tile, ceramic, that kind of stuff, traditional CO2 is basically mode 1, and then mode 2 is cutting. So what I want to do now is we're going to move you guys over to mode 2, and we're going to cut some squares. I don't want to just cut squares, okay, because cutting squares is kind of boring. But what I do want to do is we want to talk a little bit about the quality of what we're cutting, okay? Now, this is one of the first ones I cut. I was still learning when I did this, so we're going to go through the process today, and we're actually going to show you guys some thickness, okay, because we want to actually measure this. We want to show you where we're at with it, right? And we also want to go ahead and cut some stuff out, and then we want to see the cut piece, okay? So what we're looking for is the first plunge, you know what I mean? So we want to see stuff like, are we getting any beveled angles off this stuff? Are we getting a plunge hole when we start cutting? So, as the sheet is like this and it comes down and starts and makes its way around, are we seeing a burn hole on either side? Are we getting that burn hole on our work piece? Are we getting that burn hole on, say, the scrap piece? Where is all that stuff? So we want to talk a little bit about the functionality of the machine and how it, in my opinion, how it kind of leads the way or paves the way for metal cutting. Obviously, every machine has its likes, dislikes, uses, functionalities. Not every machine is going to do the same thing. They're not designed to do the same thing. However, the machine that I have does a fantastic job of cutting stainless. I don't cut steel traditionally. I'm not sure if I have any steel here. If I do, I think I might have one small thin piece of knife material that we might cut. I'll have to see if I can dig it out. But we're gonna go ahead and just cut some small squares. We wanna see the intricacy of what they look like. What does the cutoff piece look like, or what does the hole look like? So guys, let me go ahead and get that geared up. I'm gonna move you guys a little bit closer. I'm gonna explain to you how that works, and let's do it. So basically, we have our block over here that's holding the material down. I flip this over because it's a little bit more clean on this side. What we want to have is we want to make sure we have good continuity between the tip and the piece, okay? So we don't want any of that debris and any of that crap that's on there. The other thing I've done is I went ahead and moved the tip closer to the edge because I want to be able to show you guys how gentle it can also be on thin material. So something you're not going to get with thin material on like a plasma cutter is how nice it is with the extra stuff. So, or the outside stuff, I should say. So, you know, if you're saying like, what does that mean? What it means is we're going to be cutting a square here, okay? And we're going to notice that it's not really going to destroy the outside of this here, okay? So sometimes on larger machines, and you're working with what would be thinner material, you start getting some waviness to the outside. You break the outside, stuff starts flexing. The other thing to take into consideration is, you see this? See how this is up and down? I don't know if you guys can see that in the camera. It's not 100% flat right there. So let's just see how well that works with our autofocus, keeping everything in line with it not being 100% flat on the bottom. Now, we're not going to be adjusting the height of the tip. It's going to do it automatically for us. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to run this. Now, I have set this up to where it's going to do a double pass just to make sure we make it through. Sometimes it'll leave a little bit of a tail, and we could probably bend that piece out. But at the end of the day, I'm not after bending the piece out. I want it to fall out. I want it to be a clean cut, right? So that's the whole idea here. We want to go ahead and see some nice clean cut corners. We want to see if we have any issues with our pierce. You know, when it comes down and hits the metal, does it have an issue on the outside piece? Does it have an issue on the inside piece? We did not make a determination on the software which piece we're keeping. So we could be keeping the inside piece as our workpiece, or it could be keeping the outside piece as our workpiece. So we're just going to see how gentle and how nice that works with both sides of that. So let's go ahead and run this, and I'll probably move you guys a little bit closer while it's running. Let's just see what we get. Let's move you guys a little closer here. This would be our first pass. This would be our cleanup pass. Not really required. Go ahead and hit stop. What we're gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and move you guys back to the tripod, okay? I'm gonna zoom you guys out. This is all, we're all doing this live right now, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and move this out of the way. So we really don't wanna be in the way of that. I'm gonna go ahead and shut the beam off, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and move out our locking block that we have here. We'll just basically use that for a piece of weight. Pull that off. I'm gonna pull this out. This would be the underside of the cut right here. Okay, so it's just, we are going to take this outside where we will see it a little better. See how thin this material is? Now the other thing is it's not hot. Okay, this is touching it with hand. You know, it's not hot. You don't get that when you're running with the oxygen bottle, the way it's all set up. Okay, nice clean cut on the top side. Once again, it's not hot. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and move this just kind of sort of out of the way. I'm gonna go fetch that piece out from the inside. So we're gonna, usually I would go down below, happens to be that the camera's in the way of the door. There's a door in the front that allows for a drawer to be pulled out. We're just gonna go ahead and fetch it out from the top side as long as I can find it. It's right here. And we know it's this one because if you remember, it had a hole in there. So this is actually the piece here. I'm gonna bring you guys a little bit closer here. So this is the actual piece itself. Now, you know, we haven't deburred it, we haven't run under sandblaster, we haven't run under the bench grinder. This is literally raw from the machine. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is let's go ahead and just take you guys outside. Let's see this under some natural light. Then I'm going to clean it up, and we're going to see if we can find any issues where maybe it started. Now, the main thing to remember is we were cutting this way. Okay, that's how it was cutting, and I'll have to go back and look, but if I remember correctly, it was like this. So the hole itself was over here. So we started our pierce over on this side where my hand is. So just to give you a better detail, or so you can remember, if the hole's on the left-hand side, which it is right here, get you to focus. It doesn't really want to focus. The hole's over here. This is where we started our pierce right here. Okay, so guys, let's go ahead and take this thing outside. We're gonna do this live, right? Because there's no reason to stop this. I wanna show you guys this live. There is no miscommunication and or smoke and mirrors, as I call it, around here. So this is the stuff live. Let's go ahead and take a walk. Right outside here. Let's just go over here a little bit in the grass here. We can see it a little better here. Turn you guys down. Okay, so first, let's take a look at the piece. This is the piece. Okay, so this would be the bottom side. You can see a little bit of what would be like the cutoff dross, I guess is what it's called, or at least I guess that's what you guys call that, you plasma cutting guys. I could be using incorrect terminology. I do apologize about that. But guys, that's a nice clean piece. Okay, so that's the piece right there. Now this is our hole right here. This would be our hole. Nice clean cut on the top. It really doesn't have any burrs or anything on the top. Nice thin piece here. This is actually thin enough to where I could probably bend that. Yeah, I can. You can see I just bent it. So yeah, I mean, if that tells you how gentle it is with the surrounding material. Now let's go ahead and just flip this over. Let's take a look at the bottom. What you're not seeing is a lot of blowout from the bottom. You're getting a nice square, even cut. Okay, so you're just not going to get that with the plasma cutter. Usually with a plasma cutter, what you're going to get is a lot of that sideways beveled angle type junk, where it just kind of comes in and then it kind of starts cutting down at an angle and it finally does its pierce and it just stays at that angle all the way through. That's just not what you get with a laser cutter. So I'm extremely happy with this overall, how this came out. So guys, let's bring you back inside. I want to talk to you guys about a couple of more things, and let's just see exactly what we come up with.
All right, guys, I decided to bring it back outside. I'm using my iPhone now, so the audio is probably a little rough. Went ahead and put a blue glove on, just to be a little bit easier to see. Now, this is the exact piece. We have not cleaned it up yet still, so you can see that we have some cutoff here on the outside. It's a little bit of that slaggish stuff. I'm very pleased with the overall cut in the finish of it. Now, my opinion is that this is probably something that's acceptable for the level of accuracy on slides. So, a lot of my initial idea was to use this machine to cut slides. Now, of course, I would go back through. There may be a little bit of cleanup that may need to take place either with the fiber laser, may need to take place with the actual CNC. But as far as actually cutting pockets out and things like that, I'm very pleased with the way that this turned out, especially for the time frame of which it took to do that. Now, this was our corner of cut. So remember, see how our little circle over there? This top corner right here would be our corner of where it pierced. And, you know, there might be a little bit of a nip there where there was a pierce, but the accuracy that you get with the CO2 lasers is far superior over what you're getting with a plasma cutter or even a water jet, because the tip is so fine. So we're not actually seeing a hole. You know what I mean? Where normally you'd see an actual hole right there. It would take like a half circle out on this side, half circle out on the other side. We're just not getting that with the laser. So very pleased overall with the performance of it, with the functionality of how, you know, the time frame it takes, with the fit and finish work of the product in the end. I'm very pleased with that. Nice clean cut. You know what I mean? We're not getting a bevel. We're not getting anything like that. I mean, it's beautiful. So guys, let's bring this back inside and let's discuss a little bit more about what's going on.
All right, guys, now that you got to see the machine run a little bit, I want to talk to you about some of the consumable parts on this machine. Now, you hear me say a lot in this video, it's better than a plasma cutter. I'm not sure it is better than a plasma cutter. At the end of the day, I think there's more functionality with leather, ceramic, tile, acrylic, wood, obviously. We also have the ability to engrave steel and cut steel. Okay, so I think that you hear me say a lot in the video that it's better than a plasma cutter, but we do have those consumable parts. Those consumable parts can be rather expensive if they go down. So you're talking about not only buying an expensive part, you're also talking about downtime. So let's talk about what some of those consumable parts are in the event that you're actually searching for a CO2 metal cutting machine. So one of the things we have in the back, all the way in the rear, you can't see it here, is the bulb. Okay, so obviously we run a bulb. We run a water chiller that keeps that bulb cool. Okay, so those are two consumable parts. If your chiller goes down, you can't run it because the bulb can get too hot. If the bulb dies, you got to replace the bulb. Okay. Once the beam leaves the bulb, it goes through a series of mirrors, one on the back, one on the side, one on the head, then it goes down through a lens and onto your workpiece. All of those parts are consumable. So basically those mirrors, they'll chip over time, they'll fade over time, they need to be cleaned and replaced. Same thing with the lens that's in the front. The deal behind the lens is you have to buy a special lens for your machine. So they come in different sizes, that's different diameter, come in different thicknesses, they come with different coatings on them, they come with different focal lengths between where the lens is and where your workpiece is. So it's not as simple as buying something generic or universal that kind of fits all. It really doesn't work that way. One of the issues I had with this machine and why it took so long to turn the content out to you about this machine was I cracked the lens. It's one of those deals where I was working on it one night, I was actually engraving a metal AK mag, I was doing some engraving and doing some cutting, still doing a lot of sample work, and saw a little poof come out through the top, a little bit of roll of smoke, shut it down because it wasn't working, took it apart, cracked the lens, literally shattered the lens. Reached out to the vendor, said, what's going on, how did this happen, you know, is there something, is it replaceable, is it not replaceable? They said that they would, get back to me. Of course, that took a couple of days. So in that meantime, I went ahead and bought an aftermarket lens because I didn't know whether they were going to replace it or not. Maybe it falls underneath, user damage. Maybe it wasn't a defective product. It could have been incorrect user error, and it very well might have been because I don't know what I'm doing, So I ended up purchasing one. It came in, took about 12 days to get here. So at the end of the day, the story here is I had a machine sitting here I couldn't use for 12 days because of a $60 lens that wasn't in the United States. So what I'm saying is I'm one of those people that collects things. I collect extra power supplies, extra controllers, extra things that are affordable. I don't want to buy a whole secondary machine just to have it as a backup, but all the stuff that could possibly die over the life of the machine, I'd like to have it here, even if it's still in that window of warranty, because if I reach out to them, like I did, hey, my lens is cracked, what do you want to do about it? It takes a couple days for them to make a decision. Then they come back, then it takes a couple days for them to ship it. So it's one of those things like, if I had one, I could have put it in, we could have still had that conversation, but I wouldn't be, at nerve's end trying to figure out what's going on because we're not getting it done right. You know what I mean? We can't make any progress, we can't turn any work out because we don't have a lens. So that was one of the reasons why it took quite a bit longer to get that work turned out to you. And as I said kind of at the beginning of the video, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here, and especially towards the end, trying to kind of wrap up all these loose ends, so I apologize. One of the things you're not going to find me say, and you probably know this if you're a follower, is that I don't tell you about the products of which I own other than the Tormach. I don't talk about my fiber laser. I don't talk about the upgrades on the fiber laser. I'm probably not going to talk a whole lot about this machine. This will probably be the only video you actually see the entire machine. We're not going to talk about brands. We're not going to talk about country of origins. We're not going to talk about speeds, feeds. We're just not going to do it. And the reason why is because I go to these companies and I say, hey, I have a following on YouTube. It's not a real big following, but it is a following. And I'm interested in, promoting your business. I'm interested in buying your machine at a discounted price, if you're willing, and I'll promote you. I'll show the machine off, I'll answer the questions. Other people that are based in the US might have questions and may own the machine, they may not know. So it's one of those deals where I feel like it's an opportunity to help a company sell more products if they're willing to work with me. It seems as though most of the time they're not willing to work with me, so at the end of the day, I don't promote their business. Plain and simple. So I know that may not be fair to you. You guys have a lot of questions. I get that asked. Seriously, I get that asked several times a day. What laser do you have? How did you modify it? Are you talking about doing a video? Have you thought about doing any literature on this and actually doing any demonstration videos? The answer to all that is no, okay? I have no intentions of promoting the business that I bought this from. There was no value in that for me. There won't be any value in that for me. So I would be sending people to them for them to sell a product, for them to get paid, for me to get nothing but answering questions. So I tend to stay away from that. If I told you what it was and you guys said, can I do this, can I do this, can I do this, can I do this, I'm spending more time answering questions that there's no value in. Now, if you have a question that says, I have this slide, I'm interested in having the slide done, I want to have it laser cut, we may have a conversation about it can be done, it can't be done, maybe we got to use the fiber laser versus this laser, maybe we got to use the CNC on part of it. That's a totally different story than just saying, what brand do you have, where can I buy it, how much was it, and when can I get it? I know that sounds rude, I apologize, but at the end of the day, you have to understand the magnitude of questions that I'll be bombarded with answering over and over and over again. It's the same questions over and over and over again, they never change. So I don't have time for that. I work a full-time job. I try to do this stuff on, in the afternoons, like after 5 when I get off of work and on the weekends and stuff like that. So my time is already limited. It took me over 30 days since it's been here to get a video turned out to you on how it works. So that explains to you about my time crunch that I'm under. we've got a lot of other big things coming up. We have another fiber laser on its way here. There's a big story behind that. There's probably half a dozen of you, or maybe a dozen of you, that know what's going on exactly. That laser will be here any day. It may be here by the time this video comes out. It has a lot of new feature sets. It's feature rich and stuff that my other laser is incompatible with doing, or not capable of doing. It might be a better way of saying. It was a special order based off certain features that I didn't have and certain things that I knew I wanted, and it was a custom purchase. So it was one of those things that I had to work with the engineers. They had to design it as a, it's a multi-based system. We will do a dedicated video on it when it comes in. But once again, there was no value in me telling you who owns that product, or who sells that product and how to get that product, because there's no value in it for me. So I don't promote the sale of other companies if I don't get anything out of it. I don't drive my car around letting you know the dealership that I bought my car from. You didn't give me a deal, I don't care to promote for you. Everybody else sells the same car as you do. So I know, once again, that probably sounds rude, and I apologize, but if I don't get anything, I'm not giving anything. So that's just how it works with me. I apologize. With that being said, guys, if you like the channel, go back and watch some of the other videos. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. Get your notifications turned on. We've got a lot of other very interesting things coming up. We've got a lot of other stuff that we're going to be doing on this leather, wood, ceramic, tile, rotary, on stainless. So we have a lot of opportunity to do a lot of things that maybe some of the other CO2 lasers out in the market aren't performing. Okay, they just don't have that functionality. So I think there's a good opportunity here to actually go through the process and learn some cool things. So very, very cool there. Guys, the other thing is we have some other guns that we've done that we haven't shown you guys completely. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen it. You probably haven't seen this gun. What would a NCEngravers video be if we didn't have a gun? Right? So we got to bring out a gun. So I have no idea how close this is actually going to be to you, because I'm not standing behind the camera. This is an M&P 2.0. I have two other M&P 2.0s that are here. We went ahead and shaved the back. We knurled the sides. We didn't do anything to the top. Went ahead and cut the sides down, ported it. We also did the nose. We also cut it for a vortex on the back, and we moved the dovetail. So what we have is we've got a barrel that's still waiting to come back from K&M Blasting. I would highly suggest you support this guy. He is just like me, he's a small business owner, okay? So what that means is there's an opportunity there to work with somebody and personalize what you want to have done, okay? Not everything has to be like, buy it at Walmart. It's a one-stop shop, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be that way. Choose what you want, tell them what you want. Go through that process. That's how it works with me. I don't sell 15 different patterns on 4 different guns that you can mix and match. It's not really how it works. You tell me what you like. We like this, we like this, we like this. We put it together, we get you a quote, we get you a turnaround time, and we run it. Now the cool thing is with the new laser, the other new laser that's coming, we're gonna have some stuff that nobody else is offering. I know you guys have heard that before, but I'm telling you, I've turned out patterns that nobody's seen before. Some of the bigger companies that are out there, they're copying similar. It is what it is. I can't stop them, right? There's nothing I can do about that. But what I am telling you is that this new machine will be leaps and bounds ahead of what is actually available on the market. And I have some, like I said before, very specific needs with this new laser, and we are done ironing out those needs. So we're going to do a dedicated video on it. I would love to tell you about it right now. It's going to be about a week or so. I got to wait till the machine comes in because I want to show it to you. As last I knew, it was somewhere in Chicago being shipped here to North Carolina, and it's supposed to be here any day now. We're having some issues with the FDA approving it because the power wattage on the machine may not be safe in some circumstances and or in some environments. So we are trying to, I'm not going to say weasel our way around that, but we're trying to figure out the correct documentation and the correct wording in order to get the product in hand in the environment that we will be running it in. So if that tells you that it's powerful, that may be an understatement. So with that being said, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed the content. Learn as you go. Stay tuned. We've got some crazy stuff coming up. We have a lot of builds coming up. We've got a lot of laser stuff coming up. Just overall, we have a lot of stuff in general. So guys, have a good one. Always feel free to reach out to me if you need